Donald Trump, on the day he became the de facto Republican nominee for president, taking a measured stance on calls for party unity. Time to bring in our panel. Steve Hayes from the Weekly Standard, A.B. Stoddard of The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Well, Steve, I think it's fair to say that you have been a harsh critic of Donald Trump from the very start. Now he's going to be the Republican nominee, and I want to ask you what way you think the dead-enders inside the GOP are going to go. Are they going to rally around Trump? Are they going to just sit this election out? Or are they going to explore the idea of a third-party conservative campaign?
I would say a little bit of all three. It depends who you're talking about. I think we've seen today that many elected officials who indicated or suggested that they might not support Trump are coming around pretty quickly. I think in the sort of intellectual class or conservative movement activists both in Washington and around the country, you have, I think, a good number of people who say this man's not a conservative. I've fought for these ideals and these principles in some cases for my entire career, and the Republican Party, which is supposed to be a vessel for electing people with conservative ideas, if an imperfect vessel, is abandoning that with Donald Trump. So I think you'll have a mix. I do think it's a mistake to assume that the people who are opposed Trump will just come around because he's wearing a red uniform. I mean, that's not the way it works for a lot of people. I think people invest in the Republican Party or people invest in the conservative movement because they believe in these ideas.
So what do you think about a third party? Do you think that's...
I think there's talk, there's certainly talk, behind the scenes talk about it right now. I think the real question, as is always the case in these moments, who would the candidate be? But if ever there were a time for a third party, I mean, you have Donald Trump with very unfavorable numbers of 53%. Hillary Clinton's very unfavorable numbers are 37%. If ever there were a moment, this would be the one.
A.B., I was struck but not surprised last night by how quickly Donald Trump pivoted. Instead of talking about lying Ted, it was suddenly about Senator Cruz and how tough and smart and strong he was. He called for party unity and electing Republicans down the ballot. How tough a job for him, do you think, to unify the party?
Well, it's never easy, actually, when a majority of the parties voted against you. And in the case of Donald Trump, this is unprecedented. People don't believe he's a Republican. People don't believe the people who are resisting him believe that he's a bad man, that he scares them. He doesn't have the temperament, that he's too reckless and impulsive. They don't know what he's going to do. As Steve said, there are many people that are just not going to come around. Uniting the party will require some, I think, specifics on policy, some really good hires, and some presidential behavior, some statements of humility like he made last night, and also some graciousness and also some fundraising. And it's a tricky time for the Republican National Committee because donors don't want to give to Donald Trump. They want to save the Senate, and they want to devote some funds to keeping the House in Republican hands, but they're not really interested in funding Donald Trump's campaign. So unless he wants to sell those buildings or take public financing, he's really going to have to do a charm job, I think, on the party and really look like he's working hard to unite in order to actually have this paid for.
Charles, I was looking back at the exit polls at the end of the 2008 Democratic race, and 40% of Clinton supporters said they weren't going to vote for Obama, and of course the vast majority of them did. So how seriously do you take it when roughly 40% of Cruz supporters in Indiana last night said, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump?
I think the pattern is the same in just about all elections. On the night you lose, you don't want to even think about supporting the other guy. In the end, you end up being united by the nature of the opposition. And that's what happened in 08. It'll happen here. Perhaps to some lesser extent because Trump ran a real slash and burn campaign, succeeded, of course. But for some people, it's not going to work. It won't wear off. But I think the way he unites the party, apart from all the things that were mentioned, the most important, I think, and most effective would be in naming a team. A lot of people are just afraid of this guy. He's a novice, he doesn't know a lot, and he appears impulsive. So what if he surrounds himself? The first important appointment obviously is going to be the VP. But, you know, you hear stories that he'll name a cabinet or people around him.
He suggested that in an interview today, that he might name a cabinet before the convention.
If he can choose a cabinet with people of stature and reassurance, you know, you get somebody who's respected in the party with a long history, and he's going to be Secretary of Defense, or she's going to be, then that not only reassures you about the policy, but also it's a nod from that respected individual that Trump's going to be okay. So I think that could be a very effective
I want to play the game with all of you because Trump is talking obviously about a vice presidential person, and he said today he was leaning towards a politician, somebody who would know how to get things done in Washington. So let's go down the line. You got a name? Not who you think he's going to pick, but who you would be a smart pick for him, and a reasonable pick.
Well, it's got to be a politician. It's not going to work if it's a Carl Icahn. You already have a guy like that. It's got to be a governor, I think, or perhaps a senator, maybe a competitor, a Rubio-like guy, or it could be a Kasich, somebody who had his own constituency, inconceivably a Cruz, although I don't think that Cruz would accept it. But nonetheless, somebody like that.
A.B.?
I think it should be the people who are saying no. A female governor like Nikki Haley or John Kasich.
I've got to say, for people who don't know, Nikki Haley has come out today and said...
She's going to support him, but she wouldn't be VP.
Right, she's not interested in the job.
And John Kasich is not interested in the job, but he would obviously, second biggest battleground in the Electoral College, he would be the best pick. So I think a governor, particularly a female governor.
And do you think, like they're talking about Rubio, do you think the little Marco thing is going to be a problem, or does that he just says, like, I was in the middle of a tough campaign, I respect him, I want him?
I don't know if Senator Rubio is going to take that offer. But Senator Rubio has a long future ahead, and he believes that Donald Trump will end up in a ball of political flames, and that he himself has a future. At least that's what the people around him are saying, and that's what Ted Cruz believes too. So if you're one of those people who looks at your own future, you don't want to be tainted with the possibility of the risk of Donald Trump.
Steve?
Yeah, I would be shocked if Marco Rubio would even consider an offer from Donald Trump. Look, I think it has to be a conservative. One of the real problems Donald Trump is going to face over the next 6 months is that he's not instinctively a conservative, and I suspect that we'll see him moving to the middle. I mean, he sort of lives in the middle anyway with a couple of idiosyncratic conservative policies that he's latched onto. We're going to see him increasingly move to the middle. He just said in an interview with another network that he's considering raising the minimum wage, that he's going to look at raising the minimum wage on his first day after becoming the de facto
Vice President, he's got to shore up the base.
The Vice President needs to shore up the base. I don't think it'll be enough. I think you're still going to have many, many conservatives who won't support him regardless, but I think that's what I would do if I were Donald Trump.